Hidden in the cupboard with the racket, bats, and balls is where you'll find who falls. I'm a poet, so I really like writing. I always have. So 2 years ago, I published a trilogy of stories where the premise is a bunch of kids in a school have to try and escape whilst one of them is a killer. It's kind of a combination of Maze Runner and Scream. Is it stupid? Yes. Does it make sense? No. Do I like it? Yes. So here you go. Reasons I'm doing this. I don't have a pointer. Number one, nobody else has done it because nobody has read these stories really. So no one knows the story or characters, so originality. Number two, shameless promotion. You don't have to read it. You're already here, but I wouldn't mind. And number three, clicking on this video was optional. I thank you for clicking on this video, but this was your choice. Now, after that premise, we probably need to find out how the f we got here. We begin in the late 2030s, while the world is normal, crumbling apart like ours is. And then the Minlers come. Okay, the Minlers are like a creature I came up with. So basically, imagine the body of the Demodog from Stranger Things with the head of a crocodile. And also the eyes of a snail. But it's like they're, I don't know what they're called. The snail's eyes, they're like a 180 around their head, so they have like super sight. And imagine these creatures are the size, no, wrong creature. Imagine these creatures are the size of the Death Angels from A Quiet Place. And like the Death Angels from A Quiet Place, came from nowhere. Except they didn't come from the sky, they came from the ocean. They arrive in millions around the world and basically just like humanity up, because all they want is to kill people. But they can be killed through conventional weaponry. So not all of humanity is killed, just half. The northern half. The south is, they're okay, I guess, mostly. The rich and powerful from the north flee to the south and basically just leave like the survivors in like a post-apocalyptic like America, Asia, Europe, and it's like, have fun, fend for yourself. Kind of a 28 days later situation. The northern half still have like decent technology and resources, so they can like, I guess they can fend for themselves. They just have they basically have like no contact to the south. They've been left on their own, but they can still, do stuff. Which leads us to, look, it's accurate. In the early 2040s, a scientist basically makes the discovery of the century in the post-apocalypse, and literally finds out who to bring back the dead. But kind of. The problem is they're not really themselves. They don't have humanity. They're kind of just soulless beings. But they can still walk. They can still think. The scientist shows the remaining power this power, and it's like, look at this. We can help people. So the powers decide to form an organization called the GDC, Grand Defense Conservation. I don't exactly remember what it stands for. And they decide to use this power to deal with the Minler problem. But instead of using conventional weaponry, which has shown to work before, they have the bright idea of using their resources to fix up these 2 schools and set up a facility in each of these buildings before then kidnapping a bunch of teens around the country, erasing their memories and filling their head with objectives of the trials, where the teens are split into 2 categories, innocents and killers. The innocents have to find clues in this school and escape the building, whilst the killers have to find their weapons and kill everyone in order to escape. But that's a lie. They are always intended to be killed by the innocents, who then themselves, once they escape, are then put into medically induced comas, and their memories of being escaped are wiped, so they always want to come back. And the killers are put into cryogenic chambers where they are filled with the enhanced genetic stuff, in the hopes that they can gain powers from being dead by being genetically modified, so that they can be released into the world, kill the Minlers, and restore society. And you may be thinking, why would the government torture and ruin the lives of a bunch of teens? It's the government. With the lore done over with, we finally move to the actual plot of the series, starting with the project. This image isn't mine, I stole it from Google. The very first thing we learn in this series is what the character knows. They know that they are in a school, They don't remember anything from their previous life, and they know they have to escape this place and avoid, and one of them is a killer. And we learn that this character's name is Kyoko, who, spoilers, is essentially the main character of this trilogy. We also have the rest of our characters: Tom, Jason, Jill, Samir, Ria, and Lucy, who I definitely did not forget the name of before rereading this story. Definitely not. That would be very mean. Now, this story, as well as all of these stories, are not told in the first person. It's very much third person. We go through different perspectives. It's definitely an ensemble, but Kyoko is like the most consistent, I guess. So she is mainly, and we learn the most about her, I'd say. So she is our main character. All of these characters are pretty neutral to each other at the beginning. They're not like friends, they're not enemies, except for two, Jason and Tom, who are very clearly friends of some sort. We don't know why specifically they are friends or why they have a connection, but we will learn like way later on. You're gonna have to wait for that. But for now, we cut to Jason and Tom, who are together working on a clue, and Tom finally finds a clue on a computer in the school. For it to end, wait for the event. This is a trend for all these written clues. I think I'm bloody Shakespeare when I know this isn't Shakespeare, but I act like I'm this guy. I act like I'm Shakespeare with the rhyming, even though it don't make sense. Tom and Jason get all the characters in the story to come find this clue, which basically leads to the conclusion you'd expect in a situation like this. Jill and Lucy don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to deal with any of them, so they go leave. While Samir, Ria, and Kyoko also decide that it's useless and leave. I'm going to use these stock images as visual references for the rest of the story because I think it's funny and it actually kind of tells you what they're doing. So these are what the pairs are for the remainder of the story. Samir and Ria work together to go around the school to try and find where the killer's weapons are located, to try and so they have nothing to attack them with, basically, so they can use them against them. The other duo, Jason and Tom, still look for clues, but after a while they disagree with each other and decide to split up to try and find a specific clue because they can't decide if the drawing are birds or not. I'm not kidding. Unfortunately, Tom was wrong and Jason was right, so Tom tries to go to find him because he probably has the clue, which is where he runs into Kyoko, who tells him she saw him and Jill talking beforehand. Speaking of Kyoko, she spends most of the story alone, but looking for clues. And she runs into Lucy in the cafeteria, who literally does nothing but try and make a makeshift weapon out of a ruler and steals from the cafeteria. I can't really blame her. But they find a clue together that is... hold on. Hidden in the cupboard with the racket, bats, and balls is where you'll find who falls. I'm a poet. Meanwhile, Jill follows the clues she found to a pond in which there is a key. And she also finds the clue, I think, earlier about the sports hall, because she goes there and guess what she finds? A safe tucked into the back of the room. And when she opens it, finds a mask, gun, and throwing knives. Jill is the killer. And now we reach the third act. Jason and Tom meet back up, where Jason decides to gather Samir, Ria, Kyoko, and Lucy to him, because he found a clue. But he doesn't get to the goddamn point. He's very theatrical. He decides to give them the whole spiel of where he was for the past, hour. Obviously, everyone is kind of tired of it, wants to know what the clue he found was. But before he can tell them, he is shot in the back. And behind him is a masked figure holding a gun. Everyone panics and splits up. The killer, as we know, Jill, chases Lucy to the playground and the two get into a fight, but Jill ultimately wins. However, not before Lucy takes off her mask and sees that it's Jill. Kind of obvious because she was the only one that wasn't there, so by process of elimination, the killer was Jill. And Lucy gets shot. As she's dying, she asks Jill, why she did this, and Jill says, because I have to. She doesn't want to, but she has to. R.I.P. Lucy. We cut to Samir and Ria downstairs in the computing room, watching Jill go away and try to figure out how they can take her weapon when she's actively holding it. They also don't know about the throwing knives, so they just see the gun. As soon as they decide they're going to go out and try and find her, guess who magically appears in front of the door? The killer, who comes in with the throwing knives and stabs Ria. Samir immediately runs for it when the killer throws a throwing knife into their back. also killing them. So half the cast is dead in the span of one chapter. We're doing good, guys. We're doing great. In one of the upstairs classrooms, Tom is crying. He's sobbing in the back of one of the science room classrooms because, you know, he just watched Jason, his close friend, get shot in front of him, and he can't handle it. And then he sees the killer come into the room. He's basically just accepted his fate. He can't be bothered to, he can barely be bothered to look up when the killer takes off their mask. Jason was the second killer. The gunshot was a blank. So this boy conspired with Jill, pretended to be shot in front of everyone, and then killed Samir and Rhea. So the killer did not magically appear. Tom's like, but we were friends. Why would you do this to me? And this has the nerve to say, I never liked you. We were never friends, you pathetic piece of And I'll say it again. Jason raises the gun to Tom, but Tom manages to duck, and unfortunately has to fight him. After a pretty painful fight, Tom gets shot in the ribs, I think, or like it grazes his ribs. Jason tackles him to the ground, the gun falling on the floor in the process, and Tom decides to grab the gun, accidentally pulling the trigger as it's aimed at Jason. So now Tom has to warn Jason again, and this time it's on his hands, even though it was self-defense and Tom did nothing wrong in my eyes. But we catch up on Kyoko, who is hiding in the tool room, and yet is surrounded by tools, which will definitely come in handy later on. Definitely not almost always forgotten in every single time that they use them. Definitely not. Anyways, Kyoko sees Tom lumbering about in the corridor and invites him inside. And Tom is not okay. He can barely speak. He is still he's still processing the fact that he killed Jason. But the two manage to come up with a plan to lure Jill in and hopefully get out of here. Kyoko screams Jill's name to get her attention and waits for her to come to the classroom. And when she opens the door, Tom, hiding behind it, smashes her knee in with a wrench and making her drop the gun, which he slides over to Kyoko. Kyoko holds Jill at gunpoint, demanding how they get out, and Jill tells them the worst way. The three get in a fight, well, Kyoko and Jill mainly. Tom cannot handle it. He is in the corner again. He's crying in the corner. But with a few beats and a few definitely head trauma injuries, Kyoko manages to shoot Jill in the leg. She tries to crawl away, but Jill has basically accepted her fate. And Kyoko, still holding the gun, asks her again how to get out. And Jill says, just do it. And Kyoko shoots her in the head. Afterwards, there is an announcer on the speaker telling them that the doors have opened and that they can escape. So together, her and Tom leave the building, passing the bodies of Samir, Rhea, and Lucy. That definitely isn't traumatizing at all when they figure out that they're the only survivors. They barely pass through the exit doors before a perfectly hidden tranquilizer gun with amazing accuracy shoots both of them, and they go down immediately, which is where they're then put in medically induced comas until the next trial. After this, there is an epilogue that's very Maze Runner adjacent, you can tell the inspiration, where the organization logs out the events of the trial. The things we learn from it is that it takes place in 2044 and that it's a bi-monthly event, so they'll commence the next trial in 2 months. Also like Maze Runner, this is Site B of A. I told you 2 schools were being built. So we don't learn anything really from Site A other than the fact that there was 1 survivor, so we got 2, yes. X1 and X2 will be placed in cryogenic chambers, brought back to life, and hopefully given enhanced abilities, they're basically given superpowers, but that's only if they survive. This is their first time, so they honestly have no idea. We also learn that Kyoko and Tom will have their memories magically erased of escaping, so that next time they won't remember that they were tranquilized and try to escape again. I don't know where this magical eraser thing's I don't know where the magic memory erasure comes from, but oh well. And that's the end of the project. And don't worry, this is probably the weakest story, so it does get better from here on out. And now we move on to the project trials. I was rewatching the footage and you can't really see much on the laptop. The glare of the light is very annoying, so I'm gonna adjust the screen a bit. We open the story the same as before, with someone basically just like finding out that they have to find clues to escape. There's a killer, and all the names of all the characters. Except this time, it's not Kyoko, it's Tom, who in my opinion has a very understandable reaction of realizing he's back here. And here are the characters. We have Kyoko, Tom, Elena, Evelyn, Julia, Samantha, Jake, Gabrielle, Franklin, Jake, Allison, Blake. Am I forgetting anyone? Marcus. We are first shown Elena and Evelyn, who, after a very awkward first interaction, decide to work together, where they find on the bottom floor a locked door with, a lock and chain. So naturally, they need to bust it open with a wrench. Which when they're in the tool room looking for the wrench, they find the character Marcus, who awkwardly asks to come along. He's very awkward, he's very, I guess, timid, but he does want to find clues and get out of here. And when they come back to the room, they find Julia there, who says, quote unquote, Evelyn stands like a weirdo. I really like Julia. Breaking the lock and chain, the four discovered that there are rows of radios, 10 specifically, but there's 12 of them, so unlucky too. Or maybe they just get eliminated before they pass them around, so yeah. Okay, I'm not going to make jokes for this next bit. We cut to Tom on the roof, and he is very close to that edge. A bit too close. Before he can do anything, Kyoko comes up to the roof and quickly figures out what he's going to do and tells him not to. Tom basically is like, why shouldn't I? Give me one reason why I shouldn't have. And Kyoko tells him, I need you. I don't want to do this trial alone. And you're the only person that I trust. I think Tom says like, I'm the reason Jason's dead. And Kyoko's like, good. He was a piece of shit. Which I agree. I hate Jason. And I'm mad that Tom is mad at himself. But I also understand that in that situation, you kind of wonder what's the point to keep going. But Kyoko manages to convince him not to do it, and the two hug. And their hug is unfortunately cut short when they see in the field a body. The body of Blake near the school fence. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this in the last story. There's a whole fence surrounding the school. And I mean, I think in the first story there is kind of implied where Tom sees the fence, and the first thought he has is, don't climb that. And this is why. Because Blake got his ass electrocuted and immediately died. All the characters basically crowd around his body, which is where we get our first impressions of everyone. And similar to last time, Gabrielle and Franklin don't want anything to do with it. They leave. Kyoko, obviously with her last knowledge, tells everyone, oh yeah, there's probably two killers. But she doesn't tell them why. She doesn't want to tell them about the first trial because it is kind of an unbelievable story and nobody else knows that there was a first trial. Thankfully, Julia immediately believes her and Samantha's like, oh, if there's two killers, I'm out of here. And once again, like before, everyone disperses because they don't really want to crowd around a dead body. One bonus of there being one less person in this though, we have more space for the walkie-talkies. So, Elena and Evelyn tell everyone, oh yeah, we found, I don't know if it's walkie-talkies or radios, I'm just gonna go back and forth. So they found radios, and they give everyone radios, except for, Tom, who doesn't have a radio, but he doesn't want a radio, and actually he doesn't want to talk to any of them. We don't see much of Tom in this story until the third act, and even then, not much, so this is more like Kyoko's story, I'd say. It was more Tom's in the first one. These are our duos for the rest of the story, basically. Kyoko is on her own and finds Julia, and the two become friends through tennis. I'm not exaggerating. Allison finds Jake with a clue about the field, and Elena and Evelyn go in the food tech rooms to try and find clues/food. Once again, I can't blame them. I haven't eaten lunch, so I'm hungry. Whilst we're in the food tech rooms, the radio goes off, and it's Samantha telling them that she found a clue. Except for Gabrielle, Marcus, and Franklin, the rest of the survivors go to meet Samantha near this suspicious black door. And she tells them that she lost the clue, but it said, the ones you should avoid are the most paranoid. I really don't know why I made every clue rhyme. It's really annoying, honestly, because I'm reading my script, and every goddamn time there's a clue, I'm like mentally, I'm internally rolling my eyes. Why did I think this was a good idea? So naturally, she tries to accuse everyone, and specifically Kyoko, based on the last interaction where she was like kind of making assumptions about the killers, obviously, because she had been through this trial before, and they were like, how do you know there's 2 killers? Interesting. Julia and Jake defend her, but eventually Kyoko tells them, okay, fine, I was in the last trial, and I know shit. And when they ask, oh yeah, did you have to kill the killers? She's like, yes, me and Tom. And when she brings Tom into it, Tom leaves. He's like, why the hell would you involve me? And yeah, he leaves. He does not want to be reminded of the fact that he killed Jason, even though I will, because I hate him. Everyone pretty much believes them about the last trial because they don't really have a reason to lie. And now everyone basically turns on Samantha and leaves. We don't like Samantha anymore. Tom and Kyoko fill in Julia on everything that happened in the last story, and Julia obviously comes to the same conclusion they have, that they have to kill the killers. But she does tell them, I'll try. But Kyoko is like, I'm not killing anyone again. I am not going through that. So Julia tells them, there's a fly. There is a fly. So Julia tells them, okay, I'll kill them, or at least I'll try to kill them quickly and painlessly. Allison and Jake continue their search. They're basically on like a wild goose chase, and they find a clue that relates to going up. And what's up? On the roof, there is like a shed. A very suspicious shed. That wasn't, I mean, maybe it was there before, but we never saw. I'm going to assume it wasn't there. So, yeah. A bit suspicious. Also, it's locked, so there's like no point in going in. Franklin finds a bunch of wood, like a bunch of wood planks in the tool room and decides to like cut them up because he assumes there'd be a clue in there. And whilst he is greeted with Samantha, who tries to like join him and is trying to like find a clue with him, standing there very awkwardly with her hands in her pockets like, hi. And Franklin doesn't really want to talk to her, but before he can tell her to fuck off, there are a bunch of people going towards a little building in the playground, and they go follow them, where they find Gabrielle dead on the ground with a baseball bat next to her. So the killer isn't waiting this time. He isn't waiting to get their weapons. They'll kill everyone before then. The remaining survivors have a meeting because they figure that they are just gonna die if they don't find anything. So Kyoko and Tom come up with the idea of an interrogation where they try and interview everyone over the past like hour and see what they were doing during Gabrielle's death. And everyone kind of like lets them because obviously they don't really have a reason to suspect them. I mean, they could definitely be the killers, but, you know, they kind of have a sense of authority, so they believe them. Long story short, Allison and Jake tells them about their wild goose chase. Elena and Evelyn tell them that in one of the art rooms that they found a drawing of the roof shed and a mask. I wonder what that could be. Marcus found a map on the computer which basically had a bunch of white and red X's in specific locations. And one of them was in the building where Gabrielle died. Franklin tells them he was cutting wood, and Samantha tells them that she was wandering around before meeting up with Franklin. So yeah, they didn't really get anything from that interaction. So after the interrogations, everyone continues how they were, and Tom, Julia, and Kyoko decide to follow up on Elena and Evelyn's clue on in the art room. But now they go up there and find that there's a keyhole. It's locked, but there's a keyhole. And when Julia pokes in, she sees on a shelf a mask and gun. Allison and Jake try to open the suspicious black door, but it's locked. So we'll never find out what's behind the suspicious black door. So they decide to try and find a key near the nearby classroom, but instead they find a different key in the vents. I think you can guess where that key leads to. Marcus investigates the building where Gabrielle was killed because one of the X's was red when he was looking at the map. So imagine Marcus, this guy scared of death and like blood, basically investigating Gabrielle's body, where he finds ripped up pieces of paper, like where clues are found. He goes basically rifling through her blood to find these pieces of paper because they still have the words on them, and it was very clearly ripped up, but it's still intact. He puts the pieces of paper together to form the clue. The one who commits the most violent crime will hide it the whole time. Marcus calls a meeting and tells them like, oh yeah, I found this clue. And no one's really engaged, which I mean makes sense because it's pretty, I guess, ambiguous. Like, it doesn't really tell them any new information. With this resounding okay, Marcus loses his shit because he's like, I literally went digging near a girl's body and I didn't do that for nothing. Samantha basically antagonizes him like, well, maybe you're making this up. Still, her hands in her pockets like, no, you. Though to be fair, it was like a ripped up clue. He doesn't really have an argument other than that. But during this argument, Julia realizes, hey, Samantha, why are your hands always in your pockets? Especially after Gabrielle's death. Samantha's like, well, why do you care? I mean, why wouldn't you care? Samantha grabs her wrists and tries to pull them out. And when she does, well, first off, she gets bitch slapped in the process. But after she does, she reveals that Samantha's hands are covered in blood. Samantha is the killer. Pretty obvious, but there was no evidence technically. But yeah, I never liked her anyway, so... Unlike last time, Samantha is outnumbered and has no weapons this time. So she just resorts to like antagonizing them again. But she has another trick up her sleeve, which proves Kyoko and Tom right. The second killer. Who's the second killer? Jake. I know, very, very surprising. Like, Jake didn't do anything and all of a sudden he's the second killer. Allison feels very betrayed and Jake's not happy. He tells her, like, I'm sorry. Samantha tells him to shut the up and that since he can't do anything, she will kill her herself if he doesn't do anything. She vows to kill them all before quickly running away and Jake follows her. Still together, the group forms a plan on how to deal with them, except for Marcus, who gets the fuck out there once he realizes there's like they're actually in imminent danger, and he's like, nope, I'm not doing this. Elena, Evelyn, Allison, and Franklin decide to go to the tool room, which has proven to be very useful in order to find tools that can hopefully win against them. And Tom, Julia, and Kyoko find weapons in the sports hall, like baseball bats or tennis rackets, which will be very useful against a gun. And during this lovely talk, Allison's like, oh yeah, Jake has the key to find the weapons. They can put two and two together pretty easily. That doesn't help us. Whilst the group goes with the plan, Marcus is hiding in one of the bottom floor classrooms and hears Samantha and Jake going near him. And before he can run, Samantha beats the shit out of him, basically. Marcus tries to run again, fails. So Marcus tries to fight, fails. Samantha, with the baseball bat, gives Jake it and tells him to do something, basically, to kill someone. And this is the one time Marcus fights back, successfully, kicking Jake and making him drop the key in his pocket. And Samantha gets the baseball bat and slams it into Marcus's face, over and over again. Samantha is yelling at Jake, like, why can't you do anything? Why can't you kill someone? Because that's the worst thing you can do in this scenario, I guess. And then she finds the key leading to the weapons room. So now she has a new reason to yell at her and demands for Jake to take her there. Elena, Evelyn, Allison, and Franklin are finding tools in the tool room, and Allison is kind of like rethinking every interaction she had with Jake. But the others tell her, like, don't really worry about it, like, these killers are not good people, so we have to kill them. But Allison's obviously like, but Jake didn't do anything. Which, you know, very sad, very sad. So they still have to kill them either way. Remember the GDC, they need the superpowered children. Kyoko, Julia, and Tom meet back up with them and tell them, oh yeah, Marcus is very, very dead. Which sends a pretty good message to them. Don't mess up and stick together. Unfortunately, as they obviously come to the realization Jake and Samantha have their weapons, Franklin is immediately shot in the head through the window. Everyone immediately ducks under the table as Samantha and Jake come in, Samantha with a gun and hatchet. Jake gets nothing, but both of them have their masks, so, you know, they look creepy. Everyone's hiding on the table until Samantha drags Elena out, and after a very short skirmish, she slams the hatchet into her arm. Not enough to break it, but, you know, she probably can't move it after a while. Evelyn goes to her aid and then gets shot in the foot. They are not winning. Also, I don't know why she went for the foot and not the face. You know, that's where I probably aim, but oh well. Julia realizes that all of them fighting in this small room, even if she is outnumbered, is not a good idea. She pushes past Samantha out into the playground. Samantha obviously follows her. And Jake and Allison too. Like, Jake follows her. Like, Allison goes to defend her, and then Jake comes in too. Tom is having a panic attack underneath the desk, but Kyoko manages to comfort him and tells him to watch Elena and Evelyn before then she goes out to find Julia and Allison. So this is where the final fight is. Kyoko, Julia, and Allison have a hammer against Samantha, who has a hatchet and gun. Jake's also here, just watching. Even though it is 3v1, Samantha is beating the out of them and does manage to basically incapacitate Allison, who gets out of the fight. This snaps Jake out of his watching and goes to help her, asking like, are you okay? And Allison is very cold, like unsure of whether or not to trust him. And Jake goes it, and runs up to Samantha, tackling her to the ground. Unfortunately, Samantha wasn't bluffing when she said she'd kill him, and immediately shoots him in the leg, kicks him in the stomach, raises her hatchet, and slams it into Jake's face. In response, Allison gets back into the fight, steals Samantha's gun, and runs up to the fence surrounding them, and tries to toss it over. But then, as it reaches the top of the fence, an invisible barrier, perfectly aligned with the fence, shoots it back. It doesn't go over, it goes back to the field, with the momentum carrying it, forcing it away from Allison to Samantha. Samantha picks up the pistol and shoots Allison in the head. However, when chasing her, Samantha dropped her hatchet, leaving it for Julia and Kyoko to pick up, who chase her in return. They reach her at the fence, but Samantha shoots Kyoko in the leg. She really likes shooting people in the bottom half and not the top half where it actually do damage. Julia has her final confrontation with Samantha, ending with Julia, like Samantha did to Jake, slamming her hatchet into her face. The killers are dead! Yippee! Well, one of them, I am happy, is dead. The other kind of didn't deserve anything bad. Julia helps Kyoko as the two go to check on Tom, Elena, and Evelyn inside, and thankfully all of them are alive and intact. Obviously very injured, but they're alive. The announcer tells them the doors are unlocked, so they all go to the exit, and just like before, are immediately hit with a bunch of tranquilizers and put in magically induced comas, and that's where their story ends. And until the next story, they're not dead, they're not dead. We get our epilogue, where we learn X1 and X2 are still alive in their cryogenic chambers, and obviously the other 5 are put in magically induced comas. We also find out there are 3 Site A survivors, but, you know, who cares? And this is where we get our final story in this trilogy, the Project Shutdown.